The fluorescent lights in Bernie's diner hummed like dying insects, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow that made the 2 a.m. crowd look like extras in a zombie movie. My feet screamed inside shoes I'd bought at a thrift store 3 months ago, already falling apart at the seams. I'd been on shift for 9 hours, with 3 more to go before I could collapse into my studio apartment and sleep for exactly 4 hours before my morning shift at the call center started. This was my life now. 3 jobs, 70-hour weeks, and still barely making the minimum payments on the $40,000 in debt Tyler had left me with before he disappeared like smoke. Excuse me? Excuse me? The businessman at table 7 snapped his fingers at me like I was a dog. This coffee is cold. Are you incompetent or just lazy? I was neither. I was exhausted, drowning, and so far past caring about men in expensive suits who thought cruelty was a personality trait. But I needed this job. Needed all 3 jobs. So I painted on my smile the real one, not the fake customer service grimace, and met his eyes. I'm so sorry about that, sir. Let me get you a fresh pot. I collected his cup with steady hands. I hope your night gets better from here. He blinked, surprised by genuine kindness when he'd been fishing for a fight. Something in his face softened slightly before the hardness returned. He waved me away without another word and left 20 minutes later without tipping. I didn't expect him to. I just wanted his night to improve because life was hard enough without carrying around all that anger. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that someone had been watching that entire interaction from the corner booth. Watching me smile at a man who didn't deserve it. Watching me choose kindness when I had every reason to choose bitterness. I felt his eyes on me before I saw him, that prickling awareness of being observed, studied. When I finally glanced over, my breath caught. He sat alone in the shadows of booth 12, a newspaper open in front of him that he clearly wasn't reading. Dark hair swept back from a face that belonged in Italian films, all sharp angles and dangerous beauty. His suit probably cost more than 6 months of my rent. Even from across the diner I could see the glint of an expensive watch, the shine of shoes that had never known scuffs. But it was his eyes that stopped me cold. Dark, intense, missing nothing. They tracked my movements with predatory focus, and I felt suddenly, terrifyingly visible. I'd been invisible for so long. Invisible to Tyler when he'd drained my accounts. Invisible to the landlord who didn't care that my heat barely worked. Invisible to every customer who looked through me like I was part of the furniture. This man saw me. Really saw me. And I didn't know if that should terrify me or thrill me. The bell above the door chimed, and my entire body went rigid. Tyler stumbled in, drunk or high or both, his eyes scanning the diner until they locked on me. My ex-boyfriend. The man who'd stolen everything and left me with nothing but debt and nightmares. Jade. He said my name like an accusation, weaving toward the counter. "We need to talk, baby. Don't call me that." My voice came out smaller than I wanted. "You need to leave, Tyler. Leave. I just got here." He leaned against the counter, and I could smell the whiskey on his breath. "You owe me. Remember that money you think I stole? That was our money. You're just too stupid to understand how investments work." Tears burned behind my eyes. Bernie was in the back, and the few customers scattered around weren't the intervening type. I was alone with this man who'd ruined my life, and there was nothing I could do about it, except I wasn't alone. The stranger from booth 12 stood. He didn't move quickly, but there was something in the way he rose fluid, purposeful, dangerous, that made every head in the diner turn. He crossed the space between us in 4 long strides, and suddenly he was there, standing between me and Tyler like a wall made of expensive fabric and barely contained violence. "The lady asked you to leave." His voice was low, controlled, with the faintest trace of an accent I couldn't place. Italian, maybe, or Sicilian. "I suggest you listen." Tyler's drunken bravado faltered. "Who the hell are you?" The stranger smiled. It was the most terrifying expression I'd ever seen. Someone who doesn't like repeating himself. Whatever Tyler saw in that smile made him back up, stumbling toward the door while muttering threats that trailed off into nothing. The bell chimed his exit, and suddenly I could breathe again. The stranger turned to me, and his expression shifted into something softer, almost gentle. "Are you all right?" I nodded because my throat was too tight for words. My hands shook as I gripped the counter, adrenaline crashing through my system. "He'll come back," the stranger said quietly, his dark eyes studying my face. "Men like that always do, especially when they think they have power over you." The truth of it settled over me like ice water. Tyler would return. He'd made that clear. And next time this beautiful stranger might not be here to intervene. I started, but he raised one elegant hand. "Let me ask you something, Jade. He knew my name. How did he know my name? What would you do to make sure he never touches you again?" The question hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. And standing in that dying diner at 2 a.m., with my feet throbbing and my future crumbling, and my ex's threats still echoing in my ears, I met his dark eyes and realized this man was offering me a way out. But at what price? He returned the next night at exactly 2 a.m., sliding into booth 12 like he'd reserved it. Same immaculate suit, different tie. This one was deep burgundy, the color of expensive wine or fresh blood. I approached with the coffee pot, my hands steadier than they'd been 24 hours ago. "Can I get you something?" "Coffee. Black." He gestured to the seat across from him. "And 5 minutes of your time. I'm working. Bernie owes me a favor. You won't mind." The certainty in his voice suggested this wasn't a request. I glanced toward the kitchen where Bernie was deliberately not looking our direction and understood. This man owned things. Maybe he owned Bernie's diner too. I sat. "My name is Alessandro Ferrara. People call me Sandro." He studied me with those dark, calculating eyes. "I've been watching you for 3 nights now, Jade Morrison." I slid down my spine. "That's creepy." "It's thorough." He didn't look apologetic. "I saw you smile at that businessman last night. The one who treated you like dirt. You weren't faking it. You genuinely wanted his night to improve. 2 nights ago, you helped an elderly woman read the menu because she'd forgotten her glasses. You walked her to her car even though it was raining. And 3 nights ago, you gave your last $20 to a homeless veteran who came in begging for food." My throat tightened. "You've been stalking me. I've been paying attention." He leaned forward, and I caught his scent cedar and something darker, like gunpowder or smoke. "Do you know how rare you are, Jade? In a world where everyone's looking for an angle, trying to survive by stepping on others, you choose kindness. Even when you have every reason to be cruel. I don't understand what you want. I want to make you an offer." He reached into his jacket and placed a velvet box on the table between us. My heart hammered against my ribs. "I need a wife. You need protection from your ex-boyfriend and the debt he left you drowning in. I'm proposing a mutually beneficial arrangement." I stared at the box, unable to process his words. "You're insane. I'm practical." His fingers drummed once against the table. "I run several businesses in Seattle. Shipping, construction, real estate. I also run operations that people don't talk about in polite company. My world requires a wife for appearances, for legitimacy. But everyone who's been offered to me comes from the same circles, the same corruption. They see me as a stepping stone to power." He opened the box. The ring inside caught the fluorescent light and threw it back in brilliant, impossible fragments. Platinum with a diamond that could probably pay off my debt 3 times over. "You don't know my world, Jade. You don't want my power. You just want to survive with your kindness intact. That honesty is worth more to me than any political alliance." His voice softened. "Marry me. I'll erase your debt, protect you from Tyler, give you resources to build whatever life you want. All I ask is that you stand beside me and remind me that decent people still exist. What do you get out of this?" I whispered. "Someone real." The vulnerability in those 2 words shocked me. I've spent 15 years surrounded by lies and violence and transactions disguised as relationships. You smiled at a stranger who didn't deserve it because you wanted to make the world slightly less cruel. I want to protect that. I want to keep you safe so you can keep being exactly who you are. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. This is crazy. "Yes." He closed the box and slid it toward me. "You have 36 hours to decide. My number's inside. If you say yes, I'll handle everything. The ceremony, moving your belongings, erasing every trace of debt in your name. If you say no, I'll make sure Tyler never bothers you again anyway. And we'll never speak of this. He stood, leaving cash on the table that was probably 3 times what the coffee cost. 36 hours, Jade. Think carefully. Then he was gone. And I was alone with a velvet box that contained either salvation or damnation. I didn't open it. Not at the diner. Not on my walk home through streets that felt suddenly more dangerous. Not until I unlocked my apartment door and saw what was waiting inside. My furniture was overturned. Clothes ripped from the closet. And on my bathroom mirror, written in red lipstick in Tyler's handwriting, "You can't hide behind rich strangers forever. We're not done. Not even close." My hands shook as I opened the velvet box. The ring glittered like a promise or a threat, and I realized with crystalline clarity that I was out of options. I had 36 hours to decide if I was brave enough or desperate enough to marry a beautiful stranger who talked about violence like other people discussed the weather. 36 hours to choose between the devil I knew and the one I didn't. I picked up my phone and dialed the number tucked inside the box. He answered on the first ring. "Yes," I whispered. My answer is yes. They arrived at 6 a.m., 18 hours after I'd said yes into the phone with a shaking voice. 3 people in black suits with efficient movements and kind eyes, led by a woman who introduced herself as Maria. "Mr. Ferrara sent us to help with the transition," she said, surveying my destroyed apartment without visible reaction. "We'll handle everything. You just need to pack what's personal photographs, sentimental items. Everything else will be replaced." I stood in my pajamas, clutching coffee I'd stress brewed at 4 a.m., and watched strangers box up my pathetic life with choreographed precision. They worked around the vandalism Tyler had left like it was nothing. Like women didn't flee broken apartments into strangers' arms every single day. Maria guided me to the bathroom. "Shower? I brought options for you to choose from." She gestured to 3 garment bags hanging on my shower rod. "Mr. Ferrara said you should look like yourself, only elevated." The dresses were beautiful. Not costume beautiful or trying to hard beautiful, but elegant in an understated way that made me ache. I chose the champagne silk because it had long sleeves and a neckline that showed nothing but suggested grace. Because when I looked at myself in my cracked mirror, I almost recognized the woman staring back. "Perfect," Maria said when I emerged. She was already doing my makeup subtle, luminous, making my exhausted features look almost rested. "He has good instincts about people. The dress suits you. How long have you worked for him?" 7 years. He saved my life. She said it simply, like it was fact. I was in a situation not unlike yours. He gave me a way out, and never asked for anything except loyalty. Whatever you think you know about Alessandro Ferrara, you don't know enough. But you'll learn. The courthouse was in a neighborhood I'd never been to, the kind where buildings looked historic and records could be adjusted. We arrived in a black car with tinted windows, and Sandro was waiting on the steps. He wore charcoal grey, perfectly tailored, and when he saw me, his expression did something that made my chest tight. He stared like I'd stolen his ability to breathe. "Jade." My name in his mouth sounded like prayer. "You're stunning." "I'm terrified," I admitted. "Good. Fear means you're taking this seriously." He offered his arm, and I took it, feeling the coiled strength beneath expensive fabric. "Before we go in, understand this. What we're about to do is legal and binding. You'll be my wife in every way that matters. There's no trial period, no easy exit. You'll have my protection, my resources, and my name. But you'll also have my world, with all its complications." I looked up at him, at this beautiful, dangerous man offering me everything. "And what do you get?" "You," he said simply. "Exactly as you are." The ceremony lasted 8 minutes. A judge who clearly knew Sandro and knew better than to ask questions. Papers signed with hands that only shook slightly. Rings exchanged, the massive diamond for me, a simple platinum band for him that somehow looked right against his scarred knuckles. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. The judge looked at Sandro. You may kiss your bride. Sandro turned to me, his hands framing my face with unexpected gentleness. May I? The question surprised me. After everything, the certainty, the control, the absolute authority in his actions, he was asking permission for this. I nodded. He kissed me soft and claiming and absolutely devastating. Not aggressive, but possessive in a way that made my knees weak. When he pulled back, his eyes were dark with something that looked like wonder. Mine, he whispered against my lips. You're mine now, Jade, and I protect what's mine. We emerged into grey Seattle morning. Sandra's hand found mine immediately, fingers lacing through with proprietary ease. Maria approached, phone in hand. Tyler Morrison was arrested 20 minutes ago on multiple charges: fraud, assault, stalking, embezzlement. The evidence was comprehensive. She said the last word carefully. He'll be transferred to a facility where he'll await trial. Bail was denied. My blood went cold. How did you— I told you. Sandro's voice was quiet, conversational, but underneath it ran steel. I protect what's mine. He's not your problem anymore. He'll never be your problem again. He led me to the car, and I should have been horrified. Should have understood that I'd just married someone who could make people disappear with a phone call. But all I felt was safe for the first time in 3 years. The penthouse overlooked Elliott Bay, all glass and dark wood and silence that felt expensive. Sandro watched me take it in, his expression unreadable. This is home now, he said. Your home. Everything in it is yours. I turned to face him, this man who is now my husband, and felt the weight of what I'd done crash over me. I don't know how to be a mafia wife. I don't need a mafia wife. He crossed to me, his hands gentle on my shoulders. I need you. Just you. Exactly as you are. He kissed my forehead. And I breathed in cedar and safety, and the terrifying knowledge that I'd bound myself to a man whose touch made me forget to be afraid. I should have been grateful or terrified. Instead, I was both. The closet was bigger than my old apartment. Row after row of clothes I hadn't chosen. Shoes still in boxes. Jewelry that probably required insurance. Maria had orchestrated everything while I slept that first night. Sizes perfect, styles that somehow matched my taste, despite her never asking. How did you know? I asked, running my fingers over a soft cashmere sweater. Mr. Ferrara provided detailed notes. Maria's smile was knowing. He's observant about things that matter to him. The thought of Sandro cataloguing my preferences, the colours. I wore repeatedly at the diner. The way I dressed on my rare days off should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt like being seen. The first week passed in a blur of overwhelming newness. Everywhere I went, someone followed. Marco, head of security, was a former Marine with calculating eyes and an economy of movement that spoke of violence held carefully in check. He introduced himself outside my bedroom door the second morning. Mrs. Ferrara, I'm your primary protection detail. Where you go, I go. Non-negotiable. I'm just going to get coffee. Then I'm having coffee nearby. His expression was polite but immovable. Mr. Ferrara's orders are clear. You're never unprotected. I learnt quickly that arguing was pointless. This was my life now. Guards in shadows. Drivers who knew my schedule before I did. And a husband who tracked my location on his phone with the same intensity he probably monitored his business empire. The dinner parties were worse. Men in expensive suits speaking in coded language about shipments and territory disputes, while their wives smiled with dead eyes and compared vacation homes. I sat beside Sandro, his hand possessive on my knee beneath the table, and wondered how long before I became one of those hollow women. You're thinking too loud again, Sandro murmured during one particularly tedious evening. Your breathing changes. I don't belong here, I whispered back. Good. Neither do I, his thumb traced circles on my knee. That's why we're perfect for each other. Elena Ferrara arrived on day 5, sweeping into the penthouse like a hurricane in Prada. Sandra's sister was all sharp edges and assessing eyes, and she studied me with the same intensity her brother had in the diner. So you're the waitress who stole my brother's heart in 3 nights. She circled me slowly. Impressive. He hasn't let anyone close in 10 years. I didn't steal anything. He offered. He offered because you got past his walls. Somehow. Elena's expression softened slightly. Whatever you did, whatever magic you worked, don't break his trust. Sandra doesn't give second chances. Ever. The warning hung between us, and I understood. This wasn't jealousy. This was a sister protecting her brother from potential harm. From me. That night I found Sandro in his study, surrounded by paperwork and the blue glow of multiple monitors. He looked up when I entered, and something in his face eased. Can't sleep? Can't stop thinking. I moved to the window overlooking the bay. Elena said, you haven't let anyone close in 10 years. Why me? Really, Sandro? Not the kind waitress story. The truth. Silence stretched. Then I heard him stand, felt him approach until his warmth pressed against my back. My father beat my mother, he said quietly, for 16 years. Every time she showed weakness, every time she cried, every time she dared to be human. He said it made her strong, that love required discipline. His voice cracked. She died when I was 17. Pills. I found her. My heart shattered. I swore I'd never become him. He swore I'd be different. His arms wrapped around my waist from behind. Then I spent 15 years building an empire through violence and fear and calculated cruelty. 15 years becoming exactly what I swore I'd never be. I turned in his arms, seeing the raw pain in his dark eyes. Then I walked into a diner and saw you smile at a man who didn't deserve it. Saw you choose kindness when you had every reason to choose bitterness. You reminded me that I used to be human, that somewhere under all this blood, I still could be. His hands framed my face. I married you because I'm drowning in darkness, Jade, and you're the only light I've seen in a decade. I pulled him down, kissing him with everything I couldn't say. He responded desperately, lifting me against him, carrying me to the bedroom with reverent urgency. We made love slowly, tenderly, and I tasted salt on his cheeks, tears he was finally letting fall. Afterward, wrapped in expensive sheets, he held me like I was the only real thing in his world. Don't let me lose myself completely, he whispered into my hair. Promise me, I promise. But lying there in the darkness, I wondered what happened when the light wasn't strong enough to hold back all that darkness. What happened when the monster forgot how to be human again? The charity gala was held at the Fairmont Olympic. All crystal chandeliers and champagne that cost more per glass than I used to make in a day. I wore emerald silk that Maria had chosen, diamonds at my throat that Sandro had fastened with careful hands, and smiled until my face ached while men discussed money laundering like it was portfolio diversification. You're doing beautifully, Sandro murmured against my ear during a waltz I barely knew how to execute. Just stay close to me. I don't know these people. I don't speak their language. Good. That's your strength. His hand tightened on my waist. They spend so much energy performing, they've forgotten how to be real. You remind them what they've lost. I was about to respond when I saw her. A woman in white, moving through the crowd like she owned it, men and women alike parting for her passage. She was stunning, pale blonde hair in an elegant twist, ice blue eyes, bone structure that belonged on magazine covers. Everything about her screamed old money and older power. She was looking directly at me. Sandro, I whispered. Who is that? His entire body went rigid. Isabella Rossi. Stay calm. Let me handle. But she was already gliding toward us, her smile sharp as a blade. Alessandro. How wonderful to see you. Her voice was cultured silk. And this must be the famous Jade Morrison. Or should I say Ferrara now? Isabella. Sandro's tone was carefully neutral. Lovely event, isn't it? She turned those ice chip eyes on me. Jade, I've been dying to meet you. Would you mind terribly if I borrowed you for a moment? Girl talk, you understand. It wasn't a request. Sandro's hand tightened on mine in warning, but I squeezed back, a silent message that I could handle this. His expression said he disagreed, but he released me. Isabella linked her arm through mine with false intimacy, guiding me toward the bathrooms. Once inside the marble sanctuary, she dropped the pretense entirely. Let's be honest with each other. She checked her reflection, reapplying lipstick with precise movements. You don't belong in this world, and we both know it. Sandro seems to disagree. Sandro's having a midlife crisis. She turned to face me fully. He was supposed to marry me. Our families had an understanding, a decade of careful negotiation to unite the Ferrara and Rossi territories. Then you showed up with your sweet smile and tragic backstory, and he threw it all away. My stomach twisted. He said there were no commitments. In our world, understandings are as binding as contracts. Isabella stepped closer, and I caught her perfume expensive and predatory. You disrupted years of planning. Made my father look weak. Made me look like a woman who couldn't even secure a husband who was practically gift-trapped for me. I'm sorry if I don't apologize. It's insulting. Her smile was all teeth. I want you to understand what you've walked into. Sandro's kindness toward you, it's strategic. You're a placeholder, a novelty, the poor little waitress he rescued to prove he still has a heart. But hearts are liabilities in our world, Jade. Eventually, he'll realize that. You don't know anything about us. I know Sandro Ferrara. She leaned in, voice dropping to a whisper. I know he investigates everyone. I know he's been watching you for years. Did he tell you that? Did he mention how long he's been planning this? My blood went cold. Years? When you find out what he's really after, when you discover what he's been hiding, remember, I tried to warn you. Isabella pulled back, her public smile sliding into place. Woman to woman. She left me alone in the bathroom, her perfume lingering like poison. I returned to Sandro on shaking legs. He took one look at my face, and his expression darkened. What did she say? That you've been planning this for years. That you investigated me. That I'm strategic. Jade, we need to talk about, is any of it true? His jaw clenched. Some, but not the way she's implying. I can explain everything, but not here. We left the gala early, Marco and 2 other guards flanking us to the car. The Seattle night was cold and clear, and I was numb with too many questions. We were 3 blocks from home when the first shot shattered the rear window. Sandro's body slammed into mine, forcing me down into the seat as glass rained around us. The car swerved violently, Marco shouting into his radio while our driver executed evasive maneuvers that felt like an action movie. Stay down, Sandro commanded, his body covering mine completely, his weight crushing but protective. More shots. The car's armor held, but I could hear the impacts. Feel Sandro flinch with each one like they were hitting flesh instead of reinforced steel. Then we were moving faster, turning corners that threw us sideways, until finally silence. Sandro pulled back slowly, his hands running over me frantically. Are you hurt? Jade, look at me. Are you hurt? I'm fine. And my voice broke. Someone just tried to kill us. Kill you, he corrected, his face carved from stone. The angle of the shots, they were aiming for your side of the car. Marco turned from the front seat, phone pressed to his ear, his expression grim. Sir, we have a problem. Tyler Morrison escaped custody 2 hours ago. And we just got word the Rossi family is claiming responsibility for the attack. They're calling it a warning. Sandro's eyes went absolutely black with fury. Get us home, now, and Marco prepare for war. I sat in his arms, glass in my hair, adrenaline crashing through my system. And finally understood what Elena had warned me about. Love in this world came with a body count, and mine was about to start. The penthouse felt like a cage when we returned. Guards posted at every entrance, security feeds cycling through monitors in Sandro's study. Marco coordinated response teams while Sandro made calls in rapid Italian that sounded like death sentences wrapped in silk. I stood by the window, watching Seattle glitter below, and couldn't stop shaking. Someone had tried to kill me. Isabella's father had ordered my death because I'd disrupted their plans. Tyler was loose somewhere in the city, and my husband, the man who'd promised to protect me, had secrets Isabella claimed I didn't know. He's been watching you for years. I moved through the penthouse like a ghost, and no one stopped me. They were all too focused on war logistics to notice Mrs. Ferrara wandering. I found myself outside Sandro's study, the one room I'd never entered without him. The door was unlocked, trusting, or arrogant. His desk was organized chaos contracts, shipping manifests, things I didn't understand. But, in the bottom drawer, beneath a false panel I found by accident, was a file folder with my name on it. My hand shook as I opened it. Photographs. Dozens of them. Me at the diner, smiling at customers. Me walking home in the rain. Me at my old apartment, visible through a window I'd never thought to cover. Me giving money to the homeless veteran outside Bernie's. Me helping the elderly woman to her car. 2 years of photographs. Detailed financial records, every debt, every payment. Tyler's theft documented with forensic precision. Medical records from when Tyler had put me in the emergency room and I'd lied about falling. Employment history. Background checks on everyone I'd ever associated with. And a note, in Sandro's precise handwriting. Subject shows consistent pattern of selfless behavior despite personal hardship. Authentic kindness rare. Monitor for potential recruitment or protection. Update. Subject gave last $20 to single mother who couldn't pay bill, went without lunch herself. This is no longer about recruitment. This is personal. The date was 6 months before he'd walked into Bernie's diner. The file slipped from my numb fingers. You weren't supposed to find that. Sandro's voice came from the doorway, carefully neutral. I turned slowly. 2 years. You've been watching me for 2 years. Yes, Isabella was right. This was all planned. Strategic. I was, what, a project? No. He stepped inside, closing the door. You were supposed to be an asset. Someone I could recruit to manage one of my legitimate businesses. I investigate potential employees thoroughly. That's not investigating. That's stalking. In my world, there's no difference. He moved closer, and I backed away instinctively. Pain flashed across his face. Jade, please. Let me explain. You watched me for 2 years. Catalogued my every move. And then you just happened to show up at my diner. Happened to be there when Tyler attacked me. My voice was rising. How much of this was real, Sandro? Any of it? All of it? He stopped moving, giving me space. Yes, I investigated you initially as a potential employee. But that note, do you understand what it means? I watched you give away your last money to help a stranger. Watched you smile through pain because you wanted to make someone else's day better. And I stopped seeing you as an asset. Jade, I started seeing you as the woman I'd been looking for my entire life. You should have told me. When? Before I proposed. By the way, I've been watching you for 2 years, but my intentions are pure. His laugh was bitter. You would have run. Rightfully so, you lied by omission. I protected you before you even knew you needed protecting. He gestured to the file. Tyler's fraud? I documented it. His assault? I have hospital records he thought were buried. Everything in that file was insurance in case he ever came back. And he did, Jade. He came back, and I was ready because I'd been watching. Tears burned my eyes. I don't know what's real anymore. This is real. He pressed his hand to his chest. What I feel for you is real. The 2 years of surveillance. That was reconnaissance. But the moment I walked into that diner and saw you smile at that customer, the moment you were kind to someone who'd been cruel, that's when I fell. Everything after was just me trying not to lose you. I wanted to believe him. Wanted it so desperately it hurt. The door burst open. Elena stood there, face pale, phone in hand. We have a problem. Tyler Morrison didn't just escape custody, he took a hostage. She looked at me, and I saw fear in her eyes. Your sister. He has Mia. The world tilted sideways. He's demanding you meet him. Alone. At the old diner. Elena's voice was shaking. He says if police get involved, if Sandro comes anywhere near, he'll kill her. I felt Sandro's hands on my shoulders, steadying me, but all I could hear was my heartbeat and Tyler's voice in my memory. We're not done, not even close. I have to go, I whispered. Absolutely not. Sandro's voice was steel. He has my sister, and I have you. We'll find another way. But I was already moving, already planning, already choosing, because some things were worth more than safety. Some things were worth everything. Maria helped me. I don't know if it was compassion or understanding or just recognizing that some battles you have to fight yourself. But when I slipped out through the service entrance while Sandro was coordinating with Marco, she was there with car keys and awaited silence. He'll never forgive me for this, she said quietly. I'll make sure he knows I forced you. You didn't. I'm choosing. She pressed the keys into my palm. Your sister's location is in the GPS, but Mrs. Farrow'd he'll come after you. You know that, right? I'm counting on it. The drive to Bernie's diner felt like moving through a nightmare. Every street corner held memories of my old life, the one before Sandro, before diamond rings and penthouse cages and love that came with armed guards. The diner's neon sign flickered the same angry red, like nothing had changed. Like I hadn't become someone else entirely in the space of 3 weeks. Tyler's car sat out front. Through the windows I could see him pacing, and my baby sister Mia tied to a chair, her face streaked with tears. She was only 19. A college sophomore who knew nothing about my new life except that I'd married someone rich and stopped answering her calls. I pushed through the door and the bell chimed like it always had. Jade, finally. Tyler turned and I barely recognized him. His eyes were wild, pupils blown wide on something pharmaceutical. He'd lost weight, gained a manic energy that vibrated off him in waves. I've been waiting. We have so much to discuss. Let Mia go. This is between us. Is it? He laughed, high and broken. Because it seems like you involved your new husband. Your new life. Your new money. He kicked the chair, making Mia whimper. You were nothing when I left you. Nothing. And now you're what, a mafia princess. How did that happen, Jade? What did you have to do for that ring? Tyler, please. She's innocent. Let her. Innocent. He was screaming now. Was I innocent when you stole from me? When you turned me into the police? When your husband destroyed everything I built? You destroyed yourself. I just survived you. Something shifted in his expression, calculation beneath the chaos. He pulled a gun from his waistband, and my blood turned to ice. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to call your rich husband and tell him you made a mistake. Tell him the marriage is over. You're coming back to me. That's not going to happen. Then your sister dies. He pressed the gun to Mia's head and she sobbed, eyes squeezed shut. Choose, Jade. Your new life or her life. You have 5 seconds. Tyler. The door burst open. Sandro stood there, Marco and 3 other guards flanking him, and the expression on his face was death itself. Cold, calculated, absolute. Step away from her. Now or what? Tyler swung the gun towards Sandro, his hands shaking. You'll kill me? I'm already dead. Your people made sure of that. But I'm taking something you love first. Everything happened at once. Marco moved with military precision, flanking left. Another guard went right. Sandro walked forward slowly, hands visible, voice dropping to that terrifying calm. You want revenge? Take it on me. Jay didn't choose me to hurt you. She chose me to survive you. There's a difference. She stole. Tyler's finger tightened on the trigger, and I moved without thinking. Threw myself between the gun and Sandro, between my past and my future, between everything I'd been and everything I was becoming. The shot was deafening in the small space. Pain exploded in my shoulder, white-hot and impossible. I felt myself falling, felt Sandra's arms catch me, heard his voice screaming my name like a prayer and a curse combined. Then chaos. Marco disarming Tyler with brutal efficiency. Mia crying. Sandra's hands pressing against my shoulder, his face hovering above mine, destroyed with fear. Jade, Jade, stay with me. Don't you dare close your eyes. His voice was breaking, all that careful control shattering. I just found something real. Don't you dare take it away. Please, amor mio, please. Blood was spreading across Bernie's ancient linoleum. The same floor where I'd served coffee and smiled at strangers and been invisible for so long. I'm sorry, I whispered, each word costing me. Had to save her. Had to. Shut up. Save your strength, he pressed harder, and the pain made me gasp. Tears streamed down his face. Ambulance is coming. You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine, and then I'm going to kill you myself for leaving like that. I tried to smile. Protective. Terrified. He bent close, his forehead touching mine. I can't lose you. I won't survive it. Do you understand? You're all the light I have left. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. My vision was blurring, darkening at the edges. The last thing I saw was Sandra's face above mine, beautiful and broken and absolutely destroyed. And the last thing I heard was him making promises that sounded like prayers, while his hands that had killed and built empires and held me gentle were covered in my blood. I woke to the sterile smell of antiseptic and the steady beep of monitors. My shoulder throbbed with a deep, bone-level ache that made breathing difficult. Everything was white, white sheets, white afternoon light filtering through expensive curtains. Private room, private hospital, the kind of place where medical records disappeared and questions went unasked. Sandra was asleep in the chair beside my bed, his hand clutching mine like I might vanish if he let go. He looked terrible. 2 days of stubble, suit wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes that spoke of no sleep and too much fear. His other hand rested on my wrist, fingers positioned over my pulse point, making sure I was still alive. Sandro, I whispered, my voice rough. His eyes snapped open immediately, and the relief that flooded his face was almost painful to witness. Jade grazia Dio. He pressed my hand to his lips, his shoulders shaking. You've been unconscious for 2 days. The doctor said you'd wake up, but I couldn't, Mia. Safe. She's at the estate with Elena, shaken but unharmed. He moved to sit on the edge of the bed, his free hand brushing hair from my face with infinite gentleness. Tyler's dead. My guards killed him when he tried to fire again. Self-defense. The authorities have already closed the investigation. I should have felt something. Guilt, relief, horror. But all I felt was tired. You said no more secrets. I know. Tell me everything. About the surveillance. About why you really chose me. No more strategy. No more protection. It's just truth. Sandro was quiet for a long moment, his thumb tracing patterns on my palm. Then he stood, moved to the window, his back to me. My father beat my mother for 16 years, he said quietly. I told you that. What I didn't tell you is why. She smiled too much, laughed with the staff, showed kindness to people he thought were beneath us. He said she was weak. That weakness in our world gets you killed. His shoulders tensed. I was 14 when I first tried to stop him. He broke my arm in 3 places and made me watch while his voice cracked. When she finally died, when I found her with the empty pill bottle, I swore I'd never be like him. Swore I'd build something different. But you didn't. No. He turned to face me, and his eyes were devastated. I became exactly what he was. Colder, maybe. More efficient. I convinced myself that cruelty was necessary, that violence was just business, that the only way to survive was to become the thing I hated most. He moved back to the bed, pulling something from his jacket pocket. A photograph, worn at the edges like it had been handled often. It was me, 2 years ago, laughing with an elderly customer who'd apparently spilled coffee on himself. My face was lit with genuine joy, helping him clean up, No annoyance or judgment. Just kindness. This was the first picture I took, Sandro said softly. I was doing reconnaissance on the diner. Bernie owed money to some people I was investigating. I saw you through the window, and I'd forgotten joy could look like that. Forgotten people could be kind without an agenda. Tears spilled down my cheeks. I started watching you because I couldn't believe you were real. Every night, you chose kindness. Even when you were exhausted, even when customers were cruel, even when you had nothing left to give, you gave anyway. He sat beside me again, his hand framing my face. You weren't an asset, Jade. You were a reminder that I'd lost something essential, that somewhere under all the blood and violence, I used to be capable of the kind of goodness you showed effortlessly. I'm not that good, I whispered. I'm broken and scared, and I've made terrible choices. You threw yourself in front of a bullet for me. His voice shook. You risked everything to save your sister. You smile at strangers who don't deserve it because you want to make the world less cruel. That's not broken, Amormiel. That's the bravest thing I've ever seen. The words I'd been holding back for weeks finally broke free. I love you. Sandro's breath caught. Jade, I love you, I said again, stronger now. Not because you saved me or gave me security or made my problems disappear. I love you because you're fighting so hard against your darkness. Because you cry when you think I can't see. Because you asked permission to kiss me at our wedding. Because you looked at a waitress and saw something worth protecting. He made a sound between a laugh and a sob, pressing his forehead to mine. I don't deserve you. Probably not. I managed a weak smile. But you're stuck with me anyway. Then he was kissing me, desperate, relieved, pouring everything he couldn't say into the contact. When he pulled back, his face was wet with tears he wasn't trying to hide. When I saw you fall, when I saw your blood, his voice broke completely. I've killed men without flinching. I've watched empires burn, but watching you bleed in my arms destroyed me in ways violence never could. I can't lose you, Jade. You're everything good I have left. You won't lose me. I laced my fingers through his. We're in this together, remember? For better or worse. Probably mostly worse. He laughed wetly. Worse with you is better than best with anyone else. We stayed like that, foreheads touching, breathing each other's air, rebuilding trust through proximity and honesty and the terrifying vulnerability of being completely seen. A sharp knock interrupted us. Marco entered, his expression grim. Sir, we have a situation. The Rossi family just made their move, froze your accounts, leaked evidence to the FBI, coordinated attacks on 3 of your businesses. He paused. Isabella delivered a message. She wants your marriage annulled, and you married to her within the week. Or she burns everything you've built to the ground. Sandro's hand tightened on mine. Tell her no, I interrupted. Both men looked at me. I have an idea. But you're not going to like it. Sandro's eyes searched mine. What are you thinking? I smiled, the same smile that had started all this. The smile that had made a mafia boss remember he was human. I'm thinking it's time the waitress taught. Isabella Rossi, what happens when you underestimate kind people? Sandro stood at the hospital room window, his entire body radiating tension. Absolutely not. You're not meeting with her. Not alone. Not ever. She won't talk if you're there. She sees you as the enemy. I sat up in bed, ignoring the pull of stitches. But me? I'm just the waitress who got lucky. She underestimates me, which is exactly why it's dangerous. Or it's why it'll work. I met his dark eyes. Sandra, I've spent 3 years reading people who thought I was invisible. Customers who treated me like furniture told me their whole lives without realizing it. I know how to see what people are hiding. Marco shifted by the door. Mrs. Ferrara has a point. Isabella's arrogant. She won't see the threat until it's too late. You're supposed to be on my side, Sandro growled. I'm on the side of winning. Marco's expression was carefully neutral. And right now, Mrs. Ferrara is offering us an angle we don't have. 3 days later, I sat in a cafe in Pioneer Square, wearing a wire so thin I could barely feel it. Sandro was losing his mind somewhere in a van 2 blocks away. and I was about to bet everything on my ability to read a woman who'd been trained since birth to wear masks. Isabella arrived precisely on time, elegant in winter white, her smile sharp as glass. "Jade, how brave of you to come." She sat across from me, ordering espresso without asking what I wanted. "I assume you're here to negotiate your surrender. I'm here to offer you a deal." Her laugh was crystalline. "You have nothing I want except your absence. I have evidence that you've been embezzling from your family for 3 years. I said it calmly, like discussing the weather. Approximately $8 million routed through shell corporations and offshore accounts, all while blaming losses on Sandro's competition. The color drained from her face. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" I pulled out my phone, sliding it across the table. Screenshots of transactions, account numbers, dates that corresponded with Rossi family meetings. "You're smart, Isabella, but you got comfortable. Started getting sloppy about 6 months ago." Her hand trembled slightly before she controlled it. "Where did you get this?" "I didn't. Your own accountant did." I leaned forward. "He comes into Bernie's diner every Tuesday morning. Has for 5 years. Always sits at table 6, always orders the same thing, and always complains about his boss who makes him do. Creative accounting for her shopping addiction." Isabella's jaw clenched. "He thinks I'm just a nice waitress who remembers his order, so he talks about his stress, his guilt, his fear of getting caught. 3 years of conversations that I remembered because that's what invisible people do. We listen. You recorded him. I befriended him. Asked the right questions. Showed concern." I smiled, the same genuine smile that had started all this. "Kindness makes people careless, Isabella. They forget that the woman pouring their coffee is actually paying attention." She stared at me with something between rage and respect. "What do you want?" "The attacks stop. The FBI investigation disappears. Your family backs off completely." I pulled my phone back. "In exchange, this evidence never surfaces. Your father never learns that his perfect daughter has been stealing from him for years. And if I refuse? Then Sandro releases everything to your family, the FBI, and the Seattle Times." I met her ice-blue eyes. "Your father will kill you himself." "You know he will." Silence stretched between us, thick with calculation. I could see her weighing options, running scenarios, trying to find an angle. "You're not what I expected," she said finally. "Good." Neither was Sandro. I stood. "You have 24 hours. After that, the offer expires." I walked out of the cafe on shaking legs. Made it 2 blocks before Sandro appeared, pulling me into his arms with desperate relief. "That was the most terrifying thing I've ever witnessed," he breathed into my hair. "And the most brilliant. Did it work? Marco's already getting signals. Rossi operations are pulling back." He cupped my face, his eyes shining with something like awe. "How did you know about her accountant?" "I didn't. Not for sure." I laughed weakly. "But I remembered he worked for someone in import-export, and he always looked guilty. I gambled that guilt meant something worth hiding. So I called him yesterday, told him I was worried about him, asked if he'd been taking care of himself, and people tell their problems to waitresses who remember their coffee order. He'd been looking for someone to confess to for 3 years. I just had to listen. Sandro kissed me, then fierce and proud and absolutely devastating. "You've just ended a war with kindness." "Weaponized kindness," I corrected. "There's a difference." 24 hours later, Marco confirmed it. Isabella had withdrawn. The Rossi family issued a formal apology for the misunderstanding, and the FBI investigation evaporated like it had never existed. The war was over. Not with bullets or bodies or the violence Sandro's world specialized in, but with a waitress who'd learnt to see what people were hiding while they thought she wasn't looking. That night, wrapped in Sandro's arms in our bedroom, I finally understood what he'd seen in me from the beginning. Kindness wasn't weakness. It was the most dangerous weapon I possessed. Because people never saw it coming. 6 months later, I stood in Bernie's diner on a Tuesday morning, pouring coffee for the accountant who'd unknowingly helped me end a war. He smiled when he saw me, genuine and warm. "Jade, I heard you got married. Congratulations." "Thank you, Thomas." I refilled his cup. "How's work treating you?" "Much better, actually. New boss, much less stressful." He didn't know his old boss had been forced to step back after her embezzlement came to light internally. Didn't know I'd been the one to light that particular fire. Some secrets were worth keeping. The diner looked different now, renovated with Sandro's money, but kept Bernie's character. New equipment, fresh paint, but the same worn booths, and the neon sign that still buzzed open 24 hours in angry red. Bernie ran it with a substantial raise and a management team that actually gave him time off. I came here once a week. Not to work, but to remember. The bell chimed and Mia burst through, all 19-year-old energy and excitement. She'd finished her semester with straight A's, funded by a Ferrara scholarship that Sandro had quietly established for displaced students. "Jade?" She threw her arms around me. "Did you tell him yet? Tell me what?" Sandro appeared behind her, Marco trailing with his usual vigilant presence. My husband looked delicious in casual clothes, dark jeans and a sweater that made his eyes even more devastating. "She got early acceptance to medical school," I said proudly. Sandro's face lit up. "Mia, that's incredible. Congratulations. I couldn't have done it without you guys." Mia's eyes welled up. "Paying off Tyler's debt. The therapy. Letting me stay at the estate until I felt safe again." "Family takes care of family," Sandro interrupted gently. "You're Jade's sister. That makes you mine to protect too." We sat in booth 12, the same booth where this had all started. Elena joined us, sharp-eyed and satisfied with how I'd handled the Rossi situation. "You know, Isabella's father completely cut her off. She's working at a gallery in Portland now, apparently struggling with things like rent and humility." "Good," I said without guilt. "Maybe she'll learn something." Spoken like a true Ferrara. Elena raised her coffee in salute. After lunch, Sandra and I walked along the waterfront, Marco following at a discreet distance. The Seattle sky was grey and heavy with rain that hadn't fallen yet, and I breathed in the salt air and possibility. "Do you regret it?" Sandra asked quietly. "Any of it?" I thought about the question. About the scared waitress I'd been 6 months ago, drowning in debt and Tyler's shadow. About the woman I'd become, Mrs. Ferrara, who'd ended wars and learned that kindness could be a weapon, and married a mafia boss who cried when he thought I wasn't looking. "I married you to survive," I said honestly, "to escape Tyler and debt and invisibility. That's the truth." His expression shuttered slightly. "But I stay because you make me want to live." I turned to face him fully, taking his scarred hands in mine. "You looked at me in a diner and saw someone worth protecting. You gave me back everything Tyler stole, my safety, my sister, my ability to trust. You let me be strong when everyone else wanted me to be small." Tears shone in his dark eyes. "I love you, Sandra Ferrara. Not despite your darkness, but because you fight it every single day. Because you chose me when you could have chosen power. Because you asked permission to kiss me at our wedding. Because you remembered my coffee order before you even knew my name." He pulled me close, burying his face in my hair. "You smiled at a rude customer and saved us both," he whispered. "Reminded me I was still human under all the blood. Are you?" I teased gently. "Still human? With you?" "Always." He pulled back to look at me, his hands framing my face. "You're my conscience, amor mio. My light. My reason to be better than what I was raised to become. That's a lot of pressure. You handle it beautifully." He kissed me softly. "Besides, you're terrifying when you want to be. You ended a mafia war with kindness and listening. I'm half afraid of what you'll do next." I laughed against his mouth. "Love you. That's what's next. Every day, choosing you, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Promise?" "I promise." We stood on the waterfront, while Seattle hummed around us, the city where a waitress had smiled at a stranger and changed both their lives forever. where a mafia boss had remembered humanity because someone showed him kindness without expecting payment. Where two broken people had chosen each other and built something real from the ruins of what they'd been before. It wasn't perfect. Sandro still had nightmares about his childhood. I still flinched sometimes when doors slammed. Marco still followed us everywhere. The world we lived in still operated on violence and fear and transactions disguised as relationships. But we had each other, real and messy and complicated and ours. And standing in my husband's arms while rain finally began to fall, I realized something profound. I'd married a mafia boss to escape my ex. But I'd found something infinitely more valuable. I'd found home,